Well, welcome back to our study of the book of Daniel. We are in the very last chapter of Daniel, Daniel chapter 12. Now, we're going to back up for a minute. We're going to look at those last verses of chapter 11 because they kind of go with Daniel chapter 12. Now, there seems to be a shift that takes place from Daniel 11, verse 35 to 11:36. This shift is signified by the fact that the details of this king do not align with the details of any known ruler, at least as of yet. So most modern scholars believe that from Daniel 11:36 through the end of chapter 12, it's describing the final Antichrist. There is again a lot in this section, a lot we don't completely understand. I'm afraid we're in the same boat as Daniel, who says in 12:8, I heard, but I did not understand. Then I said, O my Lord, what shall be the outcome of these things? The reply of the man dressed in linen was simply, Go your way, Daniel, for the words are shut up and sealed until the time of the end. That's verse 9. We see in this section mention of the final 3.5 years, which makes the book of Revelation an important reference for understanding Daniel's vision. So we can go back to the book of Revelation and find some clues to understand the vision. You might want to do that on your own this week. It would be a big study, but I can encourage you, you will learn something. But for today, what captured my curiosity were two phrases back in Daniel 11. The first was in the section that is talking about the character of the final Antichrist. This is found in chapter 11, verses 36 through 39. Basically, the Antichrist is described as being self-willed, arrogant, prideful, full of himself, and speaking astonishing things against God himself. And buried among these characteristics in verse 37, it says this, He shall pay no attention to the gods of his fathers or to the one beloved by women. He shall not pay attention to any other god, for he shall magnify himself above all. Most of this is self-explanatory, but what does that phrase, paying no attention to the one beloved by a woman, mean? Well, my research this week, I found that it could mean several things. It could be a reference to whatever gods women might be worshiping at the time. Or it could be a reference to the Messiah, the one beloved by women. Some say it could be a reference to this Antichrist being homosexual. And others say it could just be a reference to his utter cruelty. He is unaffected by affection or compassion for those that are weak. Well, after reading through all of this, it dawned on me that the specifics don't really matter. Daniel has already had a glimpse of this ruler in his very first vision from Daniel chapter 7. There we learned that this king would have the audacity to change the times and the law. That's found in 7:25. Someone who would have that kind of arrogance would have no problem redefining the order of things that God has set up. In other words, this person would call good evil and would call evil good. None of the natural affections of women as they are designed by God would faze him or influence him. Kindness, compassion, patience, not even beauty or goodness in general, would dissuade this ruler from seeking out his own pleasures and his own cruel agendas. No one will be able to influence him because his only influence will be Satan. No matter how you might interpret the phrase, he shall pay no attention to the one beloved by women, what emerges is a ruler who is totally focused on himself and no other. He will be the center of his own universe, and he's going to treat others accordingly. and he will be the worst ruler we have ever seen. Now, the next phrase that caught my attention is found in chapter 11, verse 41. He shall come into the glorious land, and tens of thousands shall fall, but these shall be delivered out of his hand, Edom and Moab and the main part of the Ammonites. That made me ask, how is it that Edom, Moab, and Ammon escape the Antichrist even when Egypt can't escape? There is a long history between Israel and these territories. Edom was established out of the feud between Esau and Jacob. Moab and Ammon were established as a people through Lot's incestuous relationship with his daughters. Israel was constantly at battle with these nations. Even during Daniel's day, all three of these people groups cheered as Judah was carried off into exile. That's found in Ezekiel chapter 25. And there are plenty of prophecies against each of these nations. So again, why are they spared in those last days? Well, first, understand that Edom, Moab, and Ammon are located along the mountain ranges east and south of Israel. Then, when we turn to Matthew 24, verses 15 through 21, we see that Jesus warns believers remaining in Judea to flee to the mountains to escape the great tribulation. Revelation 12, 13 through 17 tells us that during this same 3.5 years, God will protect believing Israel, those who flee into the wilderness. So it could be that God is using the wilderness, mountainous territory of Edom, Moab, and Ammon to protect this remnant of believers from the clutches of the Antichrist for that 3.5-year period. That would be one explanation as to why Edom, Moab, and Ammon escape the Antichrist. Ultimately, these nations will be destroyed. But as we have seen throughout Daniel, God uses nations sovereignly to accomplish his perfect will. Now, those are not all of the questions I had, and you certainly have your own questions. So did Daniel. But the final words to Daniel should encourage us as well. Go your way till the end, and you shall rest and shall stand in your allotted place at the end of days. Daniel's visions were horrifying, but they do give hope. Hope that Jesus will overcome all evil. Hope that Jesus will reign as our sovereign, righteous King. And hope that we will live eternally with Christ. Let these things encourage you as you live your life for Jesus. Thank you for joining us in our study of the book of Daniel. I hope you have learned as much as I have, and I hope that the message of Daniel encourages your heart as you live out each day in a culture that is hostile toward Christ.